You can start whenever you want now, Paul. We're live.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Hollywood Squares on steroids. We're calling the meeting to order, and does anybody have any comment about the minutes of the meeting from so long ago? Nope. The minutes will stand approved, and we thank the staff for the minutes. Eric, do you want to make your statement now?
Yeah, so there's a statement that has to be read at the beginning of each virtual meeting, so I'm going to read it now. Until further notice, meetings of the Public Safety Commission will be held electronically with the majority of the members participating via remote access in order to comply with the State of Illinois gubernatorial disaster proclamation. Members of the public who wish to comment as to an item on the published agenda must submit their statement or question in writing to Eric Cook at eric.cook@skokie.org, and all properly submitted statements or questions will be presented and read during the relevant portion of the meeting. Written comments may also be submitted by email to citizencomments@skokie.org, by mail to the Village of Skokie, attention Eric Cook, 5127 Oakton Street, Skokie, Illinois 60077, or via the Village's drop box located by the public entry to Village Hall. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Eric. The first item on our agenda is the Police Department report. I assume, Brian, you're going to be making that report?
I will be, yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we hear you fine.
Okay, great. Obviously, a great deal of time has passed since our last report. I emailed out the August summary of the statistics, so hopefully all of you got it. Really, what I wanted to highlight is after COVID took over in March, we saw a significant reduction in calls for service and activity, as you might imagine. So for March and April was really the slowest month out of all of them. And it was pretty much half the calls for service that we're normally used to and half the activity. So as things began to open back up, obviously our activity picked back up as well. And we're almost back to normal, not quite. But because of that, most likely, we have a reduction in most of our numbers and a reduction in crime as well. So we're right around 5% down overall. You'll see in almost all the categories they are down year to date. And you can take a look at it. If you have any questions, you can let me know. And that concludes my report for now.
Okay, thank you very much. The next order of business is the Fire Department report. Chief? Gotta unmute him. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. Good evening, everyone.
Evening.
Glad you could be with us. It has been a long time since we met. We also, too, experienced a little bit of a drop-off on calls during especially March and April. Since then, the call volume has steadily increased. Quite frankly, early on, we were concerned that we'd have an onslaught of calls, EMS-wise particularly. We were fortunate that our area heeded the advice of the CDC, IDPH, and our health department, and didn't overrun the hospitals. So that worked really well for our area, and I think our area has done really well in dealing with the COVID virus. That said, there is a little bit of alarming concern. We are seeing an increase in cardiac arrests, about a 50% or almost a 50% increase, and we'll talk about that with our review of our summary. And we think that has a lot to do with people reluctant to go to the doctor, go to their doctor and get medical attention, and also reluctant to go to a hospital in fear of getting the virus. So we'll be launching some proactive information through the website to encourage people to seek, medical attention when it's needed, and hopefully we can get those cardiac arrest numbers to come down a little bit. I do want to acknowledge, the members of our department, the police department, public works, really doing a phenomenal job of not only protecting themselves, but the public and their interaction. There was a huge learning curve, and I think our organization, with guidance from our health department and an excellent job by Ann in our website of getting information out, of really providing excellent guidance to the public. It's really done a great job. As far as our report, do you have any questions? I can go through it with a PowerPoint if you want. Yes.
You got, obviously, who else has got their hand up besides Edie? You got some question there. Edie,
Edie, you had a question?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if the cardiac arrest is because of the stress around COVID and learning how to live a whole new life, and, rather than, in addition to people not going to the doctor.
I definitely think that adds to it. There's certainly a great amount of stress right now, people without work, not to mention people in close quarters and not, being able to get out. For sure, I think that adds to it.
Yeah, because as a social worker, I noticed that the parents in particular with their kids and e-learning and older people and feeling isolated and people not knowing how to navigate their lives right now is causing major mental health issues and stress issues that, in addition to what they already had going on.
Yeah, I'd say for sure.
Thank you.
anyone else? Okay,
I think you liked that question, yes? Go ahead.
somebody have a question?
Along the same lines, two questions. One is the mortality rate in terms of heart attacks, and the second one, is that really accurate? Is it that the EMS, the ambulances are getting a higher heart attack rate, or are they also increased in the hospital? Do you know what I mean? Like, are you getting higher calls for heart attacks, or is it? You know what I'm saying? Like, they might be waiting long to get there, but
Yeah, your connection is breaking up.
if
But
they gone to the hospital, they would have diagnosed the heart attack as well. Are you taking that into consideration? Or are there more mortality rates?
Yeah, so looking at the statistics, both statewide and nationally, the mortality rates are higher. And I think that is because of those delays or putting off that contact. Our numbers speak only of what services we provide, so are reflective of what our ambulances respond to. But we have gotten information from in contact with the with Skokie Hospital, North Shore System. We're getting similar information and similar concerns from them that people are delaying, proper medical care.
And that would be why there's an increase in mortality rate, I would assume, right?
Oh, for sure.
They're waiting longer? Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Anybody else? If not, we will go on to our traffic report. Traffic Engineering Division. Boy, that's a long title. Go right ahead.
Thank you very much for those kind words. We've been very busy as well. The village, we're currently working on two projects in-house. Our annual resurfacing project. It's going along. We're making a lot of progress. That one's wrapping up. It'll be wrapping up in October. Also, our village water main project. Recently, we were on Church Street yesterday with a 30-inch valve that got replaced. In addition to our own projects, which we also have a sidewalk project going to the board on Monday, and a patching program going to the board on Monday. The Lincolnwood water main that's been going down Oakton Street, the pavement was put in place this week. That should be wrapping up pretty nicely. IDOT's been pretty busy too. McCormick's been resurfaced south of Dempster. Niles Center Road was done earlier this year, and they've been on Gulf Road forever. Hopefully they can move a little faster with that. They've also been doing utility work on Dempster at Skokie Boulevard and Niles Center Road in anticipation for a big project next year that'll improve the whole intersection with new traffic signals, storm sewer improvements, and right turn lanes. One more engineering division item, Samantha, the traffic engineer, recently had a baby, so she's at home right now. Baby Camilla was born on August 10th, so. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? We're moving right along. I don't believe there's any unfinished business. Am I incorrect there, Eric? I don't believe there are any.
The one, I don't know if you wanted to mention that Chuck Cohn passed away on past Friday, member of the
Thank you.
Oh.
I
Public
should
Safety
have done
Commission.
I didn't know that.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. We just got an email about information about the funeral. I'll probably forward that to everyone tomorrow, just so you have
Yeah,
it.
he was a member of my lodge, and they did have a service for him. It's very unfortunate. No.
Paul, did the lodge do, sorry, did the lodge do another, service this year for
Yes,
9/11?
they did.
Okay, I didn't know about it.
Okay, under
Can I
new
just ask a
business.
quick question of the police department? Is there any update on, I understand there was an incident over at Old Orchard Junior High the other night where they thought there was somebody on top of the building. Did that turn out to be anything?
I don't believe so, or if it was, they may have charged him with criminal trespass. I don't believe, Brian or I were made aware of it, so, but it's actually with, some frequency that kids will find their way to the top of a roof, sit up there, and, sometimes they'll party, sometimes not, and, yeah, I don't believe they broke into the building or anything that serious if they weren't, located.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Under new business, we are being charged with a new responsibility by the mayor with regard to our police department, and Ann has a whole lot of stuff she's going to tell us about it. We're going to have some hearings, we're going to have some comments, we're going to have some visits from other commissions. So, Ann, why don't you start right in with that?
I'm glad to, Paul, but I'm also mindful of the time. It's 7:42, and the members of the Human Relations Commission who were invited to join us this evening are not coming on the call until, Paul, as you and I had discussed last week, I asked them not to log in until 7:55. So we've got 13 minutes to just chat. I would like to start by complimenting my good friend Paul Krasinski on his T-shirt. I see the word Irish there, so I like that. Alanka, Trustee Ulrich, I would love to know what you're snacking on, because I'm kind of hungry up here in my office.
I'm being trying to be discreet, but I'm starving, so I'm just having crackers and yogurt with,
Paul Krasinski's wearing an Irish shirt, and it's false advertising.
But anyway, what I really am trying to say in total is how wonderful it is to see all of you. And I know, over the course of the pandemic, I've had contact, like Howard Rosenberg and I kind of unexpectedly emailed, had a little email exchange in the middle of some things. Dennis is my neighbor. I've seen him here and there. And anyway, it's just really a delight to see all of you. And I hope that all of you and your families and your colleagues are doing well and staying in good cheer. And I'd also like to thank my colleague Eric for doing just a phenomenal job with Zoom. Better him than me. God help us if it were me at the controls. What I will tell you quickly, and then Paul, I think I've tap danced about as long as I can. I'm going to throw it back to you. But there will be, I think, 5 members of the Human Relations Commission joining us in about 11 minutes. Chairman Maria Monastero Bueno, Rabbi Amy Nemes Fuller, David Donegan, Karen Lise Sherman, and I know there's one person I am forgetting. I'm sorry, James Specker. James's name might be familiar to you. He also serves as a board member on the school board District 219. So really grateful to all of them for being willing to commit their time to this project. Paul, that's about all I have until they are on the call and it's time to
And
start.
I do thank you for that, but I thought maybe you might want to give the commission a clue as to what might be happening with this.
Sure, I will, although I will tell you that I'll be repeating this when they come on the call.
That's all.
So, sure. I won't show the document yet. I'll let you be surprised by a couple of things after 7:55. But in brief, the mayor, there was an article in the current edition, the September-October edition of New Skokie, and I think that was sent to all of you along with the meeting materials. It's on page 4, where Mayor Van Duzen, early in the summer, took the Obama Foundation's Reimagining Policing pledge. And by taking that pledge, the mayor committed the village to a very specific process, if you will, of examining public safety policies through an equity lens. As the mayor and village manager John Lockerbie and Chief Scarpelli discussed this over the course of the last couple months, and Tony, I wasn't involved, so jump in if I'm missing something, they all agreed that the best place for this work to occur was in the hands of the Public Safety Commission. I'm really proud of the work that we all, many of you, I mean, there's a couple of new faces, but most of you have been on this commission for a while, and you were involved in the Many Cultures, One Community initiative that was developed. It was developed actually fall, winter of 2014, and with the help of Deputy Chief Baker and Chief Scarpelli and the rest of the police department and Public Works and other departments in the village, was put into action in summer of 2015. So this commission has a history of producing meaningful, important work to affect change in the community. And I believe that that's why you've been tasked with this. My face is, kind of new to this process again. I think it was in January or February, the village manager, he and I agreed I had a lot on my plate, and he released me from being one of the staff liaisons to the Public Safety Commission. I am also the staff liaison to both the Fine Arts and the Performing Arts Center, Fine Arts Commission and the Performing Arts Center Board. But I'm glad to be back, so I'm going to be with you for a while again, and that pleases me very much. Tony, is there anything I missed by way of background without going into too much detail before the Human Relations Commissioners jump on?
I don't believe so. I think you covered it very well. If Mark has a question.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Brian.
Okay. Eric, since we have a little bit of time, I just wanted to touch base back on some of the projects that are going on. These are just quick questions that I had. That Skokie Boulevard Dempster project, so that was not to be finished this summer. It was always to go into next year?
Right, so the state did a lot of the utility relocations. They've been working in sidewalks, they've been working all over the place. So they can quickly, or do the work a little more quickly next year. Yeah, the main project is going out to bid this fall. They contact me once in a while on it. I gotta contact them once in a while when there's some rattling plates outside PETA Inn, but yeah, the main construction will be next year.
Okay. And then secondly, I know that the village always does sidewalk projects. Is there one main sidewalk project that's being done, or is it just small projects all around?
So our sidewalk project that's going to the board on Monday, it's our 50-50 program. In general, it's fixing broken sidewalk. This project is gonna be Church Street North, the north part of the village. There's a small, only one little area of new sidewalk that's going in with this project. It's by I can't remember what school it is. The school on Crawford, north of Golf. There's a little piece where there's a gap we're gonna fill in. But yeah, it's mostly fixing broken stuff, trip hazards.
Okay, thank you.
I guess we have some air time at this point. No. When are they supposed to sign on, the 5 minutes?
7:55, yes.
Oh, okay.
Quick question, just to pass time. So basically, on the COVID thing, I was curious as to what the police department and the fire department, like, what differences have you seen in terms of, what do you do if people are gathering, for instance, in large numbers? Do you see that a lot? Do you see a lot of people violating, codes? Are people cooperating? Like, what are your observations?
I'll take that. Let's go to Chief.
Go right ahead.
Initially, right after all the restrictions went into place, we had the stay-at-home orders, and as things got to be lifted a little bit, we definitely got most of the calls that were coming in were complaints about people that were violating the stay-at-home order or the gathering restrictions. Because we have our own health department, and because this is all health-driven, most of what we did at the police department was to send officers to those complaints, speak to the individuals there, try to educate them on what the rules are, get compliance, and then hopefully that works. And if we ever had any issues, we would write a report, document it, and forward it to the health department, to follow up on. We did not do any enforcement from the police department side of things. But there definitely was a large increase in those types of calls, and they have gone down over time as I think people got more acclimated to the rules, more people followed them, the rules got lessened. It's definitely reduced over time. But in the beginning, we got a lot of them.
In terms of riots or anything, I haven't seen anything in Skokie. I know we brought things off, but.
Yeah, in terms of the civil disobedience that was taking place, we definitely had reports that led us to believe that groups were going to target the Old Orchard Mall, for example. On 2 occasions, we put into, or actually 3 occasions, I believe, 2, put into place calling in mutual aid, putting the officers up at the mall, trying to lock down large retail establishments, having extra patrols. And we do know that people did come to town and did see us, we saw them, and then they left. We did not really have any what you would call civil disobedience in town. We did have, during the main few days of the main events, we did have a couple stores that were broken into, a little bit of looting, but that was it. So in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't, it was a pretty good success on our side, except for the few places that did get damaged.
I do have a question for you related to COVID. How have the police and fire departments fared as far as officers and firefighters becoming ill from the COVID?
That was a big concern of ours in the beginning, and I think everyone anticipated that at some point we would have a lot of employees that were sick. Just, planning for worst case, I guess. In the end, knock on wood, to date we've had 2 employees that tested positive, and both were very recent. So we went a long time without any. And I think that was because of the village's procedures and the department procedures that we put into place, all the advisement from the health department, because every officer from the very beginning that interacted with people on calls for service and everything else were wearing the appropriate protections. They were wearing goggles, they were wearing the N95 filtering masks, and they were wearing gloves. And that's been our protocol from the beginning. So I think that's a big part of it. But we fared very well, knock on wood.
How about
What about the fire department?
So overall, we are faring very well as well. We had a cluster early on, actually probably initiating before even there was a declaration. Obviously we instituted some additional measures to protect ourselves, and those have worked very well. So we've had very few, we've had a couple exposures since, actually a couple quarantines since, and one or two others have tested positive over the course of the several months since the initial 2 or 3 that were positive. So overall, considering the number of COVID patients that we've transported, we're doing very well.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comments?
I just want to say to Brian and Tony that I live by Old Orchard Shopping Mall, and I had to go out. I had to go deliver some stuff to my mom's house on that night that they were locking down Old Orchard, and you guys did a great job with that. I have to say it was well organized, and I actually have to drive down Gulf Road, so I got stopped at each one of those blockades and had to talk with them to get through, and it was very well done. I have to say I felt secure about it, but I was also a bit scared having to, because I was thinking these police don't know that I'm not a looter or a rioter, and I was a little anxious about it, but it was very well done.
Thank you. I believe some of our guests have started to arrive, Ann.
Yeah, I see that Maria Monastero Bueno is on the call, as is James Specker. Welcome. Eric, there are two, there's a phone number I don't recognize. Do you know who that individual is, the 847 number, Eric?
I think it's Frank Ippolito. He was,
Oh, it's Trustee Roberts. Hi, Trustee Roberts.
Yeah.
It was you, right? And then the Downers Grove. Do you know who that is? Oh, do you know who the Downers Grove is?
I think that's Kathy.
Oh, got it. Okay, and there's Karen Sherman. Hi, Karen. So, welcome. I would like to, Paul, would you like to give a welcome to our guests?
Welcome in the world to our guests. Would they like to identify themselves and say hello?
Hi, Randy's here.
Randy, you need no introduction.
Thank you.
Maria, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes. Would you like to tell us who you are and what you're here about?
Sure. I'm Maria Monastero Bueno, and I chair the Human Relations Commission. I'm very honored that you asked me to participate on this along with my fellow commissioners.
Thank you. Karen?
Karen should be there.
You're mute, Karen.
I guess she doesn't know that.
Can you hear me now? Am I unmuted?
yep.
Now you
Yes.
are.
Yes,
Oh,
we can hear you.
oh, good. Okay, hi, I'm Karen. I'm also on the Human Relations Commission, and I'm also very honored and happy to be a part of this with you.
Thank you. Rabbi?
Hi, I'm Amy Memes. Hang on, I'm going to put my ear. Hi, I'm Amy Memes Fuller. I'm also on the Human Relations Commission, and yeah, when I saw the invitation, Anne, from you and Eric, the word honor came to mind. And I also think this is important work, and I see this, as a nice extension of what the Human Relations Commission does. So I'm delighted to be here. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here.
Commissioner James Specker also just joined us, Paul. I don't know if you saw him.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so thank you. James Specker. I'm also on the Human Relations Commission, and I echo my fellow commissioners' sentiments in saying this is an honor, and thank you for the invite.
Thank you very much for coming. And now I'm going to toss it back to Ann because she's going to give you all the background we need.
Yes, so if you'll bear with me for just a moment, I am going to share my screen. If I can, Eric, I might need a minute to figure that out. Bear with me while I just kind of go onto my computer. And here we go. Okay. I'm getting there.
It's all right. This is a learning process for everyone.
It absolutely is. Okay, share screen. Can you see it? Can you see it?
Yep.
Yay.
Yeah.
Hooray, there you are.
I did it. Okay. I wanted to, the easiest way for me to explain and go into more detail about this project was just to put up in front of all of us the article that appears in the current edition of New Skokie. And it details the fact that our mayor committed or took the Obama Foundation's Reimagining Policing pledge earlier this summer. And by taking that pledge, the mayor committed the village to undergo an extensive examination of public safety policies, specifically through an equity lens. So I'm just going to read quickly what, the first section that's in bold, in blue. We are charged with, the community is charged with reviewing police use of force policies, engaging our community, by including a diverse range of input, experiences, and stories in the review, reporting the findings of the review to the community and seeking feedback, and then taking that report, the review and the feedback, and as necessary, reforming the community's police use of force policies. To our guests, I had, just before you came on, we had a few moments when we had already concluded most of the agenda items, and we, out of respect, we wanted to wait for you to come on. But one of the things that I explained to the public safety commissioners is that the decision by the mayor and the village manager and Chief Scarpelli to ask the Public Safety Commission to undertake this work is really a testament to the Public Safety Commission's dedication and good work historically. You might be familiar with the Many Cultures, One Community, Keeping Skokie Safe initiative that was really developed by this commission and launched in 2015. And with a very specific focus on several neighborhoods in the community and in increasing community engagement, both from law enforcement and other departments of the community. And it's been a really, really successful initiative. So based on that, the decision was made to ask the Public Safety Commission to really be the leaders of this important work. As Rabbi Nemes Fuller said, this is very important community work. And we also determined, once we started talking about what the process would be and who would be involved in the process, it made sense to involve a cohort of human relations commissioners. So we're all really grateful that you're here, and this is not a one and done commitment. This commitment is going to take place over the course of a number of months. But just to finish up with this article, and then I'm going to go on to a different document that will outline, it's a draft document to outline the work plan that's going to take place over the next, what now I think is going to be about 8 or 9 months. But the last thing is that, the theme, as it says here in the article, the theme of the pledge is to redefine public safety so that it recognizes the humanity and dignity of every person. I think, just before I leave this document, in reflecting on the conversation tonight and preparing for it, what I am committing to and what I would ask all of you to please consider is just to recognize that this is bold and sometimes it will be uncomfortable, but it's really necessary and, as we've said, important work for our community. We are going to be undertaking a lot of listening as part of this process. I am committed to, and again, I hope you'll join me in keeping an open mind. There will be many different opinions that I think we'll hear, and opinions that will likely differ from, the variety of opinions that are held by all of us on this call. So I think we need to, be open to listening and to accepting and really, as openly as we can, considering those alternate opinions. And then I would also, I am going to, and I would ask that you join me in respecting and trusting the process, because it is going to be a process. I am going to now try to get really fancy and share another document. Can you see this document now? Can you see a different, it's a memo? No.
Yeah.
Okay, new share. Now you should, wait a minute. I'm almost there, I think. Can you see
Yes.
Great,
Yes.
Okay, good, yay. Okay, I need to adjust, just if you'll bear with me, I need to adjust there where you are so that I can better see the memo. Okay. So this this memo in front of you, and I'll send a copy of it out tomorrow so that everyone can, take a more detailed look at it. But just to give you a quick run through of it, and I'm going to apologize because it is hard for me to actually see the document. So I'm going to be looking down more at the hard copy that I have in front of me. So that's why my eyes are down. I promise you, I'm not looking at my cell phone. The meetings that we have ahead of us will be held on the third Wednesday of each month at 7:30. They will be held virtually until further notice. It is likely that we will approach the subsequent meetings in a similar manner, but maybe modify the timing a little bit, in that there will be some more routine Public Safety Commission business that will maybe take place until about 7:45. I think we actually could have engaged you all about 10 minutes earlier this evening. So I think we'll carry that forward, and we'll probably start this portion of the agenda at 7:45 going forward. But the way that we envision, when I say we, it's the village manager and my colleagues, the other staff who are involved. The way this is going to unfold, it's going to start in earnest on October 21st. And that meeting will be attended by all of us, and then a variety of community groups. And when we proceed down through this memo, you'll see who we're proposing for those groups, and certainly one of the specific items that I'm hoping for input from tonight from all of you, if there are other groups that maybe we're not thinking of. But we will all together hear a presentation from the police department next month regarding the department's current use of force policy, the community policing activities and programs that are in place, and of course, crime prevention. And we will be videotaping that presentation, so it will be available for future reference. And that'll make more sense in a moment. Because what we'll then do is, from November through February, at each meeting, we will invite a different subset, if you will. I'm just going to kind of scroll down here until I can, there we go. A different subset of groups, and you'll see them here, and we'll go back to these in specific in a few minutes. But what we'll do is we'll invite maybe 2 or 3 of those groups, and when I say groups, we're going to ask each of those groups to designate 2 or 3 members of their group to join us on November 18th, and then in December it will be a different subset of those groups. In January, yet another set. In February, yet another set. And what those conversations will all center on is their impressions and their thoughts about the Skokie Police Department's use of force policy. They will hopefully have all either participated in the October presentation by police. If they're unable to participate, we'll ask that they review the videotape of the presentation in advance. And the conversations will be centered around 3 or 4 questions that I would like your input on this evening. And then we'll have time, if you want to, think about it and send me your ideas in the next couple weeks, that's fine. We won't be coming up with anything definitive tonight. But those conversations will all be similar in the way they're structured, but I'm sure that we will hear many, many different opinions. So once those listening sessions, which they will be, conclude, on St. Patrick's Day, we will present a draft report to, again, we'll be back to just commissioners, meaning all of you, and staff. We will present a draft report to the commission based on the findings of those discussions, with comments and recommendations as are applicable. In April, at the commission's meeting on April 21st, I'm assuming, this has been developed under the assumption that there will be some changes probably and some edits after our first internal discussion, or internal, there will still be a public meeting, but our discussion on March 17th. So assuming that, there will be a revised draft that will be reviewed by the commissioners on April 21st. There will be a quick turnaround, and this quick turnaround is necessary so that we can meet publishing deadlines for New Skokie, which is the village's newsletter. We issue it 6 times a year, and those deadlines are pretty hard and fast. So what my intent is that we will advise the community in the May-June edition that the draft report will be available online. We won't be able to publish it in the newsletter because on April 21st, when the commission is reviewing the final draft, the newsletter will already be at press. So there will not be time to actually include that in the newsletter. But what we will do is there will be an article in that newsletter that will arrive in homes the last week in April that will alert the community to the draft report and encourage them to go on the village website to view it. And, we can also mail copies to people, and we'll have, options for people who maybe don't have easy internet access. In addition, we will publicize the availability of the report in Skokie e-News, which is the village's electronic newsletter, and on the website, of course. Just so that you are aware, the circulation of the electronic newsletter is pretty robust. We have right now about 23,000 subscribers. It goes out every Tuesday, and we are averaging somewhere between a 30 and 40% open rate. During the spring, we were actually higher than 50% open rate, quite a bit. Resident feedback will be invited via email or written letter, probably, through May 14th, 2021. So there will be about a 3-week period where the community will be invited to view the draft report, and the use of force policy. We'll probably have that as part of it as well. That will be included in the report, the existing use of force policy. And we'll conclude receiving resident feedback on May 14th. And again, a tight turnaround. The commission meeting will be on May 19th. So the commission will then, on that evening, review resident feedback. And then the final report and feedback will be provided to the police department. At one of the 2 village board meetings in June, I don't know which one it is, I think I looked ahead at the calendar, and it would either be June 7th or the 21st. The final report will be given to the village board at a village board meeting. And the final report also will be distributed to the participating community groups, published on the website, and there will be articles in Skokie e-News and then New Skokie. However, it would be in the July-August edition of New Skokie, most likely, and that will arrive in homes in very late June. I think we should be able to make that newsletter. Are there any questions so far or thoughts on the draft process? I know this is a lot. And as I said, what I'd like to just suggest is that I will email this out, or Eric, one of us will email this out to all of you tomorrow. And if you could have any thoughts to me, if you don't have anything to express tonight, by the end of the month, by September 30th, it would be helpful. Yes, Trustee Sucker.
I'm just wondering if a group wants to be part of this process, what is the process for that? Like, if a different group wants to have a turn to participate, what would they have to do?
Well, I would suggest that they would contact, there are a few things they could do. They could email info, I-N-F-O, at skokie.org. That's the very easiest email address to remember, I think, I-N-F-O, info at skokie.org, with a request, and I would confer with the chairman, and we would do our best to slot them in.
Dan, is this going to be solely under you're doing this, or are you going to have some staff help?
Me. I mean, my colleagues on police, I mean, so for example, I shouldn't say me, this is a team effort.
The police department and the fire department may have some public information officers that could help you, but putting this together, is this gonna be on you totally?
Yeah, but it's going to be a team effort, Paul.
No, I mean the actual writing and preparing of it.
It will be my work product, yes.
Okay, that's all, I just wanted to know.
Yeah, it will be my work
Everybody
product.
will know that.
I'm sorry?
I wanted everyone to know that.
Yeah, it will be my work product. Is my expectation. I mean, I have no reason to think it wouldn't be at this point. I would expect that it would be. Any other thoughts or questions?
I want to say thank you for bringing this to this commission. I think it's appropriate, given the circumstances of the times, so thank you.
Well, it's certainly not me. I mean, I appreciate your expression of gratitude.
Well, no, I know, to the mayor, I guess, really.
The mayor, the village manager, and Chief Scarpelli.
Yep.
Yeah, it's Joe Reyes. I do have a question.
Yes.
Okay, so this process that is occurring, is there going to be a moment or a time other than now where we can talk about the process and have input on some of the steps that we're taking in terms of discussions? And so, for instance, September 16th, October 21st, March 17th, these are all steps, maybe talking about getting a little more in depth into those steps.
I'm not sure that I understand what you're asking, Joel. I mean, you can, if you have comments, questions, or concerns, you're welcome to voice those now. Or I am glad to receive comments, questions, or concerns through at least September 30th.
So excuse me. For those of you who do, I don't want to go into this long diatribe, but those of you who do know me know that I was in law enforcement for 29 years. I have a very interesting perspective in that I grew up in Uptown in the city, which was a very diverse, low-income area. My parents both had a third-grade education. And so when I moved to Skokie, I did so because I wanted my children to grow up in a very diverse community that had access to a lot of resources and opportunity. With that said, I have an interesting perspective because I come from a community where my parents and even myself at some point lived paycheck to paycheck. And I understand what it feels like to be in a situation where the only thing that you have in your life is the shirt on your back and the respect that you have for yourself. So when we have interactions with police, that is important for law enforcement to understand. The other part of that perspective is being in law enforcement for 29 years. I understand that view of what they go through and what goes through their mind, the training that's involved in everything that's part of that. So with that perspective, and the point of what I'm trying to say is, is it going to be part of the police department presentation, or is there an opportunity for not only the public to educate all of us on how they feel and their experiences, but to let the police department maybe show us how they feel and maybe have an opportunity for them to say, okay, here is some of the training we go through. We'd like you to see it or do it so you understand what goes through an officer's mind. So, and the reason that's important is when you look at use of force is not just black and white. It's a guide, and it's meant to protect both the officer and the citizen. And I think that when reviewing this, which I think is a great thing to do, I really think law enforcement is at a too familiar crossroad with how we deal with the public and the back and forth that we have. So I think it's really important that before that we move into making decisions on a final product or a final recommendation, that we learn both ways on what each group really feels when they have to deal with things on the street. whether it be the idea of not trusting law enforcement or law enforcement saying that I don't know what's going on, this person is not complying. So I think that we really need to look at both sides, and I'd like to see that as part of this process. Does that help?
Yes, thank you. I really appreciate your comments. A couple of thoughts. I would imagine, and they've heard you say this, that my colleagues in the police department will express what they are, you know, their thoughts and what it feels like for them to have to, as part of their jobs, to use force. The Skokie Police Department has a simulator for different law enforcement scenarios, and perhaps that commissioners could participate in that. We would have to be very thoughtful and deliberate on how we did that to comply with COVID-19 guidelines. Chief Scarpelli and Deputy Chief Baker and Chief Hoflick and I would need to really think that through. But there's a possibility that that could be incorporated into this process. So from you know, the police department expressing this is what our experience is. I think there are, you know, there's opportunity on October 21st, and then there might be other opportunities that we can create. I think in terms of the other side of that coin, though, Joel, of hearing from the public, I mean, that's what this whole process is about. You know, the meetings in November, December, January, February are all centered around hearing from these community groups what their experiences are, how it feels to them, and what they think. In actually, we're going to ask them to, you know, do their homework, read the policy, and come with not just their, you know, their experiences and their feelings, but also to really have read the document and to have, if they have ideas on what they would like to add or subtract from that document. Then we will, you know, again, as the process goes on, we'll have this 3-week period in late April through mid-May where the entire community would be invited to review the draft document. The other piece of that, Joel, and I'm so glad you brought this up, because what I think will be important is to have a link, like in the same place on the website where this draft document is linked. I think it'll be important to have a link to the videotape of the October 21st presentation, where the police have explained what their experience is. So I hope that comes close, you know, to responding to what you said. And I do very, very much appreciate your perspective, Joe. You do indeed have a very unique perspective in this.
Yeah, I think I would just say that it's extremely important to get community input. There's no doubt about that. So I don't want to give anybody the impression that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that you know, a big part of what's going on today is really the inability for people to stop and just listen to each other. And I think you brought this up during this, when you were talking about it, that we need to sit and listen and respect each other's ideas. And I'm just, I'm all in for that we do exactly that. I just want to make sure that there's that component where we listen to all our partners, which include law enforcement.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes, and that is going to be an important part of this process. So thanks, Joel.
Excuse me, Ann.
Yes, hi, David.
How are you?
From here. Good to see you.
Okay. Will we have any kind of data about, say, in X period, 5 years, 3 years, whatever, of the how often and what type of force has been used?
I'm going to throw that to Chief Scarpelli. I believe I heard in a staff conversation recently that every use of force incident is, you know, they have very specific documentation. Tony, Brian, can you provide more insights on that?
Yes, every time we use force, it triggers an internal review. So,
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, David.
No, I think I'm worried that there might be a divorce between perception and reality in terms of how often force is used here in Skokie by the police officers and also the kind of force.
Yeah, if I could jump in, it's Brian. I'm putting together the presentation for next month, and I definitely have a placeholder in there for our statistics on use of force for the past. So that will definitely be covered. And also how it compares to the national average.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's also important to understand that what we consider force may not be considered force by the general public. So, for example, you get a call of a bank robbery and a red pickup truck took off. When we stop a red pickup truck, we're going to make what we call a felony stop on it. We're going to order the people out at gunpoint. Then they comply. They'll walk to us, typically backwards. We'll give them instructions, kneel down, put your hands on your back. We handcuff them, and there's no resistance or anything. They're handcuffed. That's the end of that piece of the scenario. That we consider, the drawing of the gun and pointing it a use of force. So when people say use of force, everybody needs to know and understand that it doesn't necessarily mean hands-on. If somebody is resisting, you may use an arm bar just to stabilize that arm so it can be handcuffed, where, it's not pushing, punching, kicking, any of that stuff, but that would still be considered a use of force.
Just to hop on what the chief was saying, I plan on, as part of the presentation next month, going through those different levels and how we define them and what they are, and giving you data for each one of those.
Thank you. Also, and just out of curiosity, so that this won't become a free-for-all with extreme views on either side, what type of, guidance or even parameters will we release as we seek to engage other community groups?
I like that question. Well, there will be a couple of thoughts, David. First of all, the groups will be invited to the meetings starting at 7:45. They'll have about 30 to 40 minutes with the commission. So they will have a finite amount of time. Each one of these groups and whatever other groups come forward will be asked to allocate up to 2 or 3 representatives. So it wouldn't be 12 people from one group. There would be smaller numbers of delegates from the various groups. But one of the other ways that I think will be important is to focus the conversations. I'm going to go up to, sorry about that. November 18th through February, you'll see here the conversation will be centered around 3 to 4 questions that I would like this group to give thought to, what those 3 or 4 questions would be. And as for those of you, I think some of you have attended the village's community forums. There was one in November of 2014, and then there was, and then another one in November of 2019. And my plan is to, I didn't really facilitate those discussions. We had an outside facilitator. I will be facilitating these discussions, and I'm going to model that facilitation after the way the community forums were, in that there will be a finite amount of time for each question. But the groups will be invited to submit emails, or, we won't just cut it off. We might have to cut off the discussion that evening but they will be invited to, submit other information that's important to them. But each one of the questions will likely have a prescribed time period. But I think it's going to be, I'm excited to see what our group comes up with, what this group comes up with in terms of what those 3 to 4 questions might be.
And
Yes, Paul?
one of the issues that I see is that this is being as that we're doing this on a virtual meeting, there's no personal dynamic, not being in the same room with these people, not being able to observe them and them observe us, except for a face on a screen. How are we going to overcome some of that lack of personal contact, if you will?
Paul, I wish I had a good answer for that. I don't.
I mean, this is an arm's length transaction, and it's going to be very difficult to, even understand what their issues are and how they actually feel about their emotions of how they feel about it. You can't read everything, just by a face on a screen, and I think that's an issue that we're going to have to deal with here.
Well, it is. I mean, the alternative, though, if it would be difficult for all of us to be together. That wouldn't be. It wouldn't be advisable. From a health perspective.
I'm not suggesting that. Have you given any thought to the dynamics of how we can do this, where it has some, let's call it personal involvement?
I wish I had a better answer for you. I think we have to forge ahead with the options that we have available to us right now. And virtual meetings is the best that we can do. I'll talk to my colleagues. Maybe there's another idea. I don't see how our meetings could change. I think our meetings need to be virtual, if
That's what I heard. I mean, that's a given for the next several months. Maybe.
Right. So I guess I don't know what you would. I'd like to know, because I haven't. Being on Zoom calls, and Paul, I know you said when you and I have talked over the last few weeks, you've been on a lot of Zoom calls. You had expressed for your profession. I think people can really say what they need to say and express what they want to express. I mean, I have not seen a lot of people holding back.
Perhaps if they put some of their thoughts to paper before the meeting that we could distribute, it might help.
Maybe. I don't know that I would want to, Rabbi Fuller, Nemes Fuller is suggesting that we could divide into smaller breakout groups. Maybe. Maybe that is an idea, something we could think about. I don't know that we have the time for that. But let me give it some thought. Maybe.
Aren't we required to meet together and we can't meet in smaller groups? I mean, I thought that's a requirement of these commissions.
Yes, but yes.
That's right.
Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. There are a lot of questions. There's a lot of curveballs in this.
This is the world we live in, and we just have to do Zoom. I mean, you can't, Paul, we're not going to be able to be in a room together.
No, you don't. You got my point. I'm just saying that that's going to possibly not interfere, but will change the dynamics of how we do this, because we are not really in each other's presence. And you don't get a sense of how people really feel looking at a head on a screen. That's all.
I mean, Paul, I can speak to the fact that I do therapy on a screen, and you'd be surprised how the world has changed and how you really can do that at this point. As sad as it is the way of the world.
I'm just making the point that it's a possibility that it'll have an impact on.
I mean, I hear you, and I'm saying that I think people are getting used to this.
Yeah. And let's see how the November meeting goes and who shows up.
And could I just
sure,
mention Ed McCarthy? The charge of the commission is sort of framed by the pledge that the mayor took, and as it's represented and let me back up. I think given the degree of feeling that is going to be awakened, I think, by this subject matter in this time. We have to manage expectations of the community in terms of the outcome of this. And the way the pledge was described in the document that in the bulletin that you put on the screen, the last item was reform the policy. In other words, an admonition that will be a necessary outcome of this. And, you know, I don't think any of us know what direction this is going to go, but it may well be that the policy and the policy doesn't need reforming, that it rather is an issue of training, or it's an issue of implementation or something like that. That the policy as written is appropriate and a good basis for going forward. But the way that it is characterized there is that it's an admonition to change it. And I just think maybe in communication with the community, we ought to make that permissive and not an admonishment.
I appreciate that sentiment, Ed, very much. And I think I'd like to just, you know, before I address quickly, before we conclude, the community groups that are on this list, some of you might not be familiar with all of them. I'd just like to reiterate, you know, the 4 points that I made in the beginning. You know, this is bold but necessary and important work. We're all going to need to commit to a lot of listening. We're all going to need to commit to having open minds for opinions that are different than ours. And we all need to trust the process. And we need to trust that whatever the end result of that process is, it's where the community took us. And whether that's that there are some changes or there aren't, or what is the continuum, if any, of changes. So, you know, when I hear you say that, that's what I think.
My concern is that it's not currently in the way that it's in the newsletter. It's not represented as a continuum of possibility.
Okay, yeah.
That's a thing we should be careful of.
I really appreciate that. Point well taken. This was taken directly from what the Obama Foundation published. So it's their words, not necessarily. I mean, everything that's not in bold are my words, but what's in bold and blue is from the Obama Foundation. So thank you, Ed. Trustee Specker, and then I'm going to move on to the
Okay, I just have a request for the police presentation. It might already be in there, but I really want to try to understand how the CIT training affects the use of force, and if CIT trained police officers have a different format. I don't know. I'm just wondering if they can address that in some way, because I know we have officers that are trained in crisis intervention. So
We can definitely put that in there, trustee.
okay, thank you.
And
Good point, thank you. I'm sorry, Trustee Ulrich, is that you? I can't see everybody.
yeah, so I just want to acknowledge that we.
I can't hear you, Alaka.
So diverse. Oh, we come from a community that's so diverse. I feel like because of the basically, there's no filter around me because no one knows what my background is, whatever. So I hear all kinds of things from both sides. I love the fact that the police department has sensitivity chain to race. However, I think that having police with maybe, with the seed group where they interact with the community would be a good thing. And saying all that and saying that we are trained and that I'm very proud of our police department, that we have very few complaints. I think that morale for the police department is also low. And while there's some bad seeds out there and there's problems with systemic racism, we also need to support our police department in and how they do their job and how well they do their job and how well they are trained here in Skokie. And I think they set an example for other communities. And so I think that if you're constantly being hit with negative stuff, I'm just saying that we should also acknowledge and you know, flaunt the fact that we are a flagship community that, you know, has an excellent police department, and attack other issues of race, because there is systemic racism. I would say that from a personal standpoint. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Trustee Ulrich. I'm going to, I'm sorry, is there, okay. What I'd like to do, just again for time's sake, is to move on to the list of community groups. Again, up to 3 representatives from each group, and the groups will be combined. I haven't decided exactly how they're going to be combined, because I wanted to see if any of you had thoughts, either tonight or again as a follow-up to me by September 30th, of a group that's not on here. But Skokie United is a group that has been active in the community over equity issues. They will be invited to participate. District 69 has a really active Parents Plus group. They will be asked to participate. As I wrote this, I was thinking it would be important, and I'd be curious for feedback from the group if anyone wants to jump in, to invite a PTA rep or 2 from other school districts. I think as long as, you know, District 69 is participating, I think it would be an important courtesy to invite the other districts as well. Does anyone feel differently or have an alternate thought on that?
I just want to make sure if the school districts are invited that there's certain people on certain boards that are very anti-police, anti-law enforcement that are, I just have a feeling would have a hard time holding a neutral tone. So I just want to make sure that's taken into consideration before ahead of time, just because I think, like as Alonka was saying, we have an amazing police department that's very transparent and open to change and doing what's best for the community. And I just want to make sure that it just doesn't get out of hand.
Appreciate that. These, in terms of the schools, it won't be elected officials who will be invited to participate. It would be parents. It would be parents of students.
How many people would you suspect would be coming from each group?
2 or 3.
2 or 3.
At best.
You're gonna have, it will not work. Because you have too many people with different opinions, and there's no way you're in the time allowed. It's my opinion. This is my opinion, not anybody else's. We're trying to do too much in too little time with too many people, and that doesn't bode well.
So, Paul, if we
permit them to have 1 representative from each group, let them pick the person they want to be their spokesperson. Oh, excuse me, spokesperson. I gotta get that straight.
I'm going to think on that. I would like to know what the rest of the group thinks about limiting
You've got 9 groups or 10 groups, maybe more. We're going to be, just have an army of people on these meetings with us, and we're not going to get much done. I think you should have a spokesperson from each group come and express the views and opinions of that group.
So, Paul, I'd like to just make sure that it's clear that different groups participate on just different evenings. So the intent is that not that all of those groups would participate in November, December, January, and February. They would be divided. So based on that, I think it likely would be manageable, but I'd like to hear from other people. Does anyone else?
Yeah, Ann?
Yes, Joe.
I have a procedural question then. Can or can we not meet if it's not a quorum? So if we did break up in smaller groups, as long as we didn't have a quorum, can we discuss these matters without having to worry about open meetings and everything else?
I don't know.
Is that a possibility?
I don't know. I'm going to have to check with the Corporation Counsel's office. I'm thinking not, but I don't know.
No more than 2 people.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm guessing no, but I don't know, Joel. I will check with the Corporation Counsel's office on that.
And Are these people, when they come to this meeting, are they gonna be participating in a discussion, or are they gonna make a statement of their position?
It'll be a discussion centered around the questions that the commissioners are going to hopefully develop.
So if it's gonna be a discussion, you're gonna have 9, 10 people, each from different groups, with different views, different opinions, and you're gonna be there till midnight if you get anything done.
But we won't have till midnight. We'll have 35 to 40 minutes.
I think the workaround for that would be if you would split people up into rooms with one of us as basically a stenographer. I mean, otherwise, it seems like you could cover more ground, because if things do get out of hand, then you're not having one person feed another person.
Yeah. These are great suggestions. I wish I knew. I wish I had the knowledge that my colleagues in the Corporation Counsel's office do about what Open Meetings Act does and doesn't allow. But I will find out. And if we can break up into smaller groups, we'll figure that out.
Well, you can do that on Zoom if you want to.
Oh, I know, you know, from a technical standpoint, it's absolutely possible. I just don't know if we can do that and remain compliant with Open Meetings Act, the Open Meetings Act.
Also, everybody's gonna, the commissioners are gonna be getting different views from different groups, and maybe they should share at the same time. I don't know if that's a great.
Well, it would be reporting out. I mean, what we would do, Paul, would be, if we are able to break up in small groups, would be again a similar model to what was done at the Skokie community forums, where there were breakout groups, there was a specific question discussed, the group came back together, and then there was reporting out. So that would make it, I think, more manageable.
Well, we'll see how that goes. Okay.
Any others?
Mark has a question, or I think he still has a question.
I can't see everybody, so thank you.
Mark, do you have a question?
No, I don't have a question. I was trying to let Alonka speak. But I just want to say, I think that it's too early. I think we need to start moving through the process and see how it goes. You know, if things as we're moving along start to get mucked up, we can adjust. But I think we need to kind of move forward. I think also, and I understand Paul's views about you know, being online. It's very difficult, but we're really lucky to actually have this ability to do an online forum like this. So I think we just need to move forward and see how things progress, and go from there.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, I heard someone recently say, I wish I could remember the context. It might have been in a Skokie community forum event or foundation event last week, but sometimes you just have to start.
Yeah.
You just have to start.
It's my understanding too, Anne, that these are being televised, so I don't know how a breakup group would work in that forum.
Yeah, I don't know either. Again, lots of questions.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Breakout groups are not, when you record a Zoom meeting, the breakout groups are not recorded.
Right, so I don't, and this is not just this isn't about recording, it's about being broadcast, so,
Right.
yeah.
Right, they would not be able to, like, you couldn't put the breakout
Right.
groups on Facebook Live or whatever.
So I don't think that will work.
I think, Ann, you quoted Martin Luther King, by the way. Not even
Oh,
realizing.
yeah, I heard someone else say it. I'm proud to know that I quoted
You
him.
did, about, like, you know, you gotta do it now, like, the time is now.
Yeah.
All right?
Yes.
The other comment.
Any other thoughts on the process? I know this is going to be messy, and it's going to be challenging.
My thought about the groups is, if we do invite parents, we shouldn't limit it to one district. I think people will say, why wasn't my district consulted?
Yeah, I agree.
And the other question that I would ask is, what group do I see missing is students. You know, high school age students. I don't know if that anybody thought about asking, because I'm thinking of the way that students organized at the beginning of the summer, you know, putting together that community vigil at Oakton Community Park that was organized by students in the march down McCormick Street.
Thank you for that. Excellent suggestion. I'm thinking both the high schools and possibly even Oakton Community College. Those would be good sources to tap for those voices. Thank you.
We had really good student representatives come when Beth was leading I'm losing the word now, the vaping. When we had our vaping discussions, and there's lots of really talented young people that probably would have a lot to offer.
Are there other groups that any of you, as you look at this list, think are missing or should be?
Wouldn't limit it just to high school and Oakton. I know for a fact that District 65, there's been a lot of open discussion and communication regarding law enforcement and perception in the community, and it's also part of Skokie that's pretty diverse, and which it's not really part of, like, it's separate because Evanston Skokie schools, and I think it's definitely with the parents in that area have a different perspective also. So in regards to parent population, I'd open it up to all the schools and see if there's any way we can do that.
Yeah.
Expand the time. I mean, this is something we're just going to have to go on longer if we're going to have a meeting, if we're with more representatives, just to be fair to everybody.
So I'm going to kick that to the chairman. When you say, time, so do we start, do we change the start time of the public safety commissions? Do we start at 7?
I personally would love that, but I know there's some people that always like the 7:30 start time.
Well, since we're not having to travel anyplace.
Right. There's no commute.
There's no commute, so 7 o'clock should be adequate for anybody, because if they were coming to a meeting, they leave their house at 7 o'clock.
Plus, when we do like the firehouse or something on site, I think we go a little earlier too. So, I mean, it's not unprecedented.
Okay, so I think what we'll do is Eric and I will poll all of you about a possible earlier start time. And then I'll get in touch with the chairman, and we'll see if we do, maybe we'll start the meetings at 7, and the other groups will be invited in at maybe 7:15. And we'll allow from 7:15 to 8:30, maybe a full hour and 15 minutes for the discussion with the other groups. Maybe something like that would be possible. But we'll poll the groups and see what we can do. Okay, I see a lot of good comments in here. Ken, no, we won't be able to meet in person. I see Ken Mantell has asked about using the fields for meeting, and we won't be able to do that. Dennis, good suggestions about rules and parameters for speaking in advance. Yes, we'll look into that. A couple of commissioners have said they're good at starting at 7. So again, we'll continue on with that. I'm really done. What I would like to, open it up to any other questions or thoughts. But here's what I would ask from all of you is, again, by September 30th, if you would send me your thoughts on any other groups that are not included in here. I've made notes about those suggestions that have been made this evening. And I would also ask you to be thinking of questions, because I think it's going to be important that we have 3 or 4 standard questions around which we structure these discussions.
Well, wait a minute. Are we going to ask them questions, or are they coming to make a statement?
No, they're not coming to make a statement. They're going to be discussions.
So we really won't know the questions until we see the presentation on the 9th in October, correct? I mean,
Possibly.
don't we have to see that before we know what we are questioning?
And what are we going to question? What do you think?
Well, there's going to be, yes, because that's what we're challenged with. We're challenged to review the police outline or the police handbook, the police on force, use of force.
But I'm trying to avoid the implication, the unstated words. I think Joel alluded to it. There must be something wrong. We have to fix it.
No. We're just, I mean, they're asking for revision, but we need to have a constructive reason for making a suggestion. Doesn't mean that it's going to be accepted either, but the collective voice of this board, of this body, and these other people that we're asking to come to this, everybody has an opinion, everybody has a valuable insider ideas after we see the presentation to make recommendation that may or may not be accepted. That's the whole point of this, Paul.
Why don't we have a group of people who have interacted with the police recently?
Can I just throw something out? It's Joel Reyes again. I think that a lot of these questions really can't be answered until we delve a little bit more into what we're trying to do in this process. I would say that I can't believe this has not been done already somewhere else. So if we did some research away from the meeting, we'd probably be able to come up with some really good questions to get us to think about other questions. So I think the idea of questions, there's plenty of conversations out there that if we just look at this process or have somebody do some research on this process and come up with some general guideline or general ideas for questions, I think we could form something. My concern is how it's going to have to be so general. How do you limit that to 3 questions?
Yeah, well, we'll see. But point well taken about the research. I'm sure there are other models that we can draw from. So I will definitely look into that and see what I can come up with. I suggest we conclude, Mr. Chairman, for the evening. I suggest we conclude for the evening. I appreciate everyone's participation.
If you're through, I was going to say, if anybody else has any issues, otherwise we'll adjourn.
I think again, I would like to just briefly reiterate, the focused mission is to review the police use of force policy, engage the community by hearing a diverse range of input, experiences, and stories, report the findings, and on a continuum, make recommendations for reform as the process reveals is or is not necessary. So again, I think we need to be kind of stay true to that mission.
Okay.
That's all I have. And I would really, again, like to thank all of you and to express real gratitude to the members of the Human Relations Commission for joining us. It's going to be a very exciting and exciting process. Tonight's been exciting already, so we'll see where we go from here.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
Is there a second? There's a second.
One question really quick.
Say aye and turn
Oh,
off.
wait. Paul, someone has a question.
It's more of a statement. Earlier this week, I received an emergency call from the village of Skokie for the census, and I'm not trying, I understand the census is very important, but I don't think in this time and age with everything that's going on with potential Old Orchard being closed down, we've had tornado warnings, we've had a lot of issues and from natural to man-made, that the census should be looped into an emergency broadcast out. Just my 2 cents.
Thank you, and I will pass that along to the village manager.
Before you adjourn, I just have to make a comment. I've been monitoring the citizen emails. There have not been any pertaining to Safety Commission, so I just had to announce that. Thank you.
And Eric, great job on the controls.
Yeah, thank you, Eric.
Yes, Eric, and we'll hire you for the next meeting too. Thank you very much.
I don't think I have a choice.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
They didn't let us Like, they didn't shut it all down, did they?
It's going to be going